running from the bad guy. I'ma stare him in the eye like, what's up?
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in. This is actually later than it's supposed to be. It's funny because I thought I was recording, live the whole time, and I was not even on the stream. So I guess I have to double dose it, but you know what, it's worth it because I want to get this message out to you, and I want to thank you all for being patient with me and tuning in to my 365 Days, My Story, My Strength Challenge. I'm going to do this all over again because I literally just did this 2 seconds ago, but you know what? It's okay. This episode contains graphic content involving domestic violence, child endangerment, physical assault, and traumatic parenting dynamics. It includes firsthand accounts of being physically attacked while protecting a child, as well as intense emotional distress and descriptions of physical harm, including head trauma and psychological threats. Proceed with care. If you are a survivor of family-based violence, emotional manipulation, or childhood trauma, this episode may stir painful memories. Take breaks when needed. Turn it off if you need it. You do not need to relive your own trauma to connect with someone else's story. And I really, truly understand. Your healing is sacred. You do have permission to protect your peace while still honoring your truth. Okay, so here we go. Today I want to share a story again that I thought that I was over until I had to revisit this moment. I didn't completely understand that how this would trigger me, but something about thinking about it stirred up a feeling that I really couldn't ignore, which was guilt, you guys. I've always tried to give people the benefit of the doubt, and I hope that I've hoped that people could change even against my better judgment, even against the fact that they're showing me that they're not going to. I always wanted to see the good in people, but there are moments like today, or like that time, that reminded me that not everyone has it in them to be a better version of themselves. This was happening when I was still living in Vegas and I was with my ex. He had a little part-time job where he was at work and he wasn't doing much, but every now and then he would bring food home or try to do something small to make it look like he was trying. But at the time, I still wanted to be out of the relationship. I was done, but I was still trying to co-parent, and I still wanted him to be around the kids, which was why he was even still in the house. He was still trying to be with me, fighting, doing little things, thinking that it would work, and still trying to hold on to something that I had lost years ago. And I'd already been pulling away. I slept on the couch. I became distant with him, and I just kind of tried to stay out of his way without causing a fight, because if I pulled back too much, he would be upset, and then that would be really bad. But when he was out of the house, it was like a breath of fresh air. I could think, I could breathe, I could move. But when he came back, it was like I could feel the air just kind of being pulled out of the room again. But then that's when he changed his tactics. When he realized that I wasn't going to fall for his little tricks. He started to take things out on our oldest son. Our oldest son was the one that passed away, and he's always been really, really sweet, really, really quiet, really soft-spoken. And he looked a lot like me, so he reminded my ex, which is their biological, of me, and he would use that as against him. He saw my traits in him, and he began to punish him. He would yell at him for things that were not even worth yelling at him, just to make, and then he would make him cry. He would get mad at him for not fighting. He saw our son's sweetness and kindness as a weakness, and I believe he hated him for that. So once I seen him doing these things, I would always go in and protect my kids, because no matter what he did to me, I would never let him abuse my children. I did not want that. I've always fought for my kids. If I didn't fight for myself, I would fight for them before anything. And I would never allow him to mistreat my children. But there was a night that he took it too far. He got mad at our son again. For what? I don't remember. But it was something small and petty, I just know. And he starts yelling at him, and he starts cussing him out like he was grown. And I had to jump in and stop it, So then that means that in turn, me and him are arguing. And then he turned and blames my son, for us arguing. And then he goes and tries to whoop him. But I'm like, no, I told him, no, I got in the way. I'm not going to let you just whoop him because we're arguing about you talking to this child like he was a man. Because at the time, he was no older than 7, between 6 and 7. And then that's when things got really bad. He starts hitting me, and he keeps hitting me because I chose to protect our son instead of letting him just abuse our son for no reason. So I yelled at my kids for them to go to my son's room, because my son had a back door, and we had an exit plan that if they needed to run to the neighbors, they ran out the back door. And my ex tried to get past me to get to the room. And I kind of fought back enough to get to the door. And I'm holding the door in my hand against the wall, and he starts to bang my head up against the wall. And he's banging my head up against the wall until I start to see bright lights. My visions get blurry, and my head starts to get dizzy, and of course, it hurts. And I hear my son screaming and yelling at their dad for him to please stop, just stop, stop, stop. But I held on to the door. Um, with every bit of me that I held on to that door because I wasn't going to let him hurt my son. Therefore, out the blue, he just stopped. And I went in the room with my son. I locked the door. I had my kids in there getting ready to, trying to get myself together so that I could walk to the neighbor's house. And I hear him knocking on my son's back door because and he knocks on the door and asks my son to let them in. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to risk putting them in danger or him taking his anger out on my other kids. I'm like, no. He's threatening my son, trying to get him to open the door. And we had a screen door of one of those security gates on all of the doors, including his. So I opened the door and I let him know if he didn't stop, I was going to call the police. And domestic violence is way different than child abuse. So he calmed down and he went in the room and started playing the game like it was nothing, like nothing happened. And that day kind of changed something in me permanently. It let me know that he couldn't even be good to the kids. He couldn't even pretend to be good to the kids. He had no cruelty. His cruelty had no limits. And I realized a new truth that day, that if I didn't leave, that, either I would kill him and end up in jail, or he would kill me and end up in jail. And I couldn't do that. So the wounds that I identified with that night, it didn't just hurt. It reprogrammed something inside of me. It made me question if I waited too long, if I risked my kid's safety by giving him chance after chance after chance. I didn't feel like a mother. I felt like I was a protector, a shield that my kids had to hide behind, because if I hadn't got to that room sooner, there's no telling what he would have done to my son. It made me feel like I failed them, like their tears were a direct result of my silence. And when I looked at in the mirror, I saw the woman who had survived, but at what cost? I started to believe that I was broken in a different way, not only because he hit me, but because I stayed long enough for my kids to see this happen. I felt like I was responsible for their fear, and that no matter how hard I fought that night, a small part of me still believed I'd already lost the most important part of the battle, which was protecting my kids' innocence. So my reflection question to you: have you ever questioned your own strength? Not because you didn't fight, but because you had to fight. You had to fight to protect someone that you love. What guilt have you been carrying that wasn't yours to hold? So the negative mindset that I had was that I felt as a mother. I felt as a mother I should have done more. I should have left him sooner, and I shouldn't have let my kids suffer because of me. So I had to pause and take a break and separate my regret from my reality, my guilt from my reality. I had to reframe that, tell myself that you didn't fail, you fought. You stood between your child and a grown-ass man in a violent rage. You held that door as if your own body was nothing, and then you stayed there till you almost gave out. And that isn't failure, that's sacrifice. That's love under siege, and that's proof that you were always their protector, even in a war that you didn't choose. And I had to tell myself I didn't fail them. I fought for them with everything I had. The wound was not inside me to carry alone. It wasn't mine to carry alone. It honestly should have been his, because I was trying to protect some children that he was trying to hurt. So I want to share a coping skill with you guys, a tool called the warrior stance, a trauma reversal body tool. This practice uses physical stance and body memory to reclaim the feeling of strength and safety. So you just stand tall on your feet, stand tall with your feet shoulder width apart, your hands and fists and arms strong at your side, And then you close your eyes and then you imagine that moment that you stood between them and violence, or whatever you were protecting in the violence. And you say out loud, I stood up, I didn't back down, I was the wall they couldn't break. Now you tighten every muscle in your body for 5 seconds. Hold the tension there for 5 seconds, then release. Then do it again. Hold for 10 seconds. Then let the strength burn through your fear, and then release. This reminds your nervous system that you're not helpless. You were a force, and you use this when your guilt tries to erase your courage. So here's the 1 minute empowerment challenge. Confront the guilt, burn the lie. Write down the one sentence of guilt that loops in your mind the most. Then read it out loud, then rip it up. But don't just stop there. You say the truth. For example, I didn't fail, I protected, I survived. Now you write it, you take it, you rip it up, and then you destroy it. You burn it safely, bury it, just eliminate it, get rid of it. Because guilt doesn't get to keep living in the same space that you fought to reclaim. Now for our survivor spotlight. This is about a beautiful woman named Angela White, who was once a really beautiful, hopeful young Black woman whose life was taken over by intimate partner violence. She spent years in a relationship that was marked by escalating violence, control, jealousy, and emotional manipulation. She thought that she could handle it. She thought she could fix him and that the love would heal the hurt. But one night, her hurt became a scar on her body. In a brutal attack, her partner stabbed her multiple times, over 5 times, once in the chest, once in the torso, and in the arms. And she bled on the home of her floor that they shared, or the floor of the home that they shared. She collapsed and nearly overwhelmed by what had been done to her. Her body took a lot of damage. And each wound carried the weight of every broken promise, every locked door, every silent call for help that he refused. She survived, but she didn't come back home. She didn't come home whole. After waking in the hospital bed, her lungs were struggling, her ribs were shattered, and her heart was beating against trauma. She faced a choice to either let fear cage her or rise, and she chose to rise. Rehabilitation was only the beginning. Angela built the new life anchored in survival and solidarity. She understood that surviving violence wasn't just about escaping, it was about reclaiming her body, her voice, and her existence. She founded the Black Women's Healing Center, BWHC, in Atlanta, a holistic sanctuary dedicated to Black women escaping violence and intimate partner abuse. Here, survivors find trauma-informed therapy, legal advocacy, wellness programs, and sisterhood. Angela's lived experiences have shaped everyday services, from yoga classes that re-anchor shattered nervous systems to court support that reminds survivors that they are not alone. She also became a national advocate, training law enforcement, healthcare providers, and social workers in culturally competent violent injury responses. She speaks at conferences, schools, and city halls, refusing to let fear stay a secret. Angela just didn't survive a stabbing. She created a space where wounds can be witnessed, honored, and healed. She was fatally stabbed by the person who claimed to love her. The world expected silence, shame, or surrender, but instead she answered with truth, healing, and reclamation. Her body was wounded, but not her resolve. Angela took the violence done to her and built a bridge for every Black woman trying to cross from fear to freedom. Her center doesn't just treat wounds, it reprograms hearts. She proves that survival isn't physical, it's spiritual, emotional, and communal. When she says you matter more than your story, you matter more, your story matters, your healing matters. You matter, your story matters, your healing matters. She speaks not from training, but from scars. Angela is not living, she's liberating. So thank you to Miss Angela White for refusing to be erased. Thank you for turning gut-wrenching violence into sanctuary, preservation, and power. Thank you for giving a voice to and a space to Black women who deserve far more than survival. They deserve thriving. You didn't just make it out. You lit the path for us to follow. We see you, we stand with you, we honor you. So if no one told you this today, you are not the villain in your children's story. You are the reason they made it. You are the one who stood up and took the hits when no one else would. And don't you ever forget that. So if this story resonated with you, please like, comment, subscribe, and follow me on my social medias. My link tree is in my bio. And also, I want to also please just If you don't do anything else, hit that subscribe button. There's so much more going on with this channel than just these challenges every day. I have my podcast that's aired every Friday, 7 p.m. Central Time, where I have a solo podcast where I share all of my tools and techniques, or I have a guest that comes on and they share their stories, their trauma, and their healing tools, their techniques. It's all liberating. It's all uplifting. And then Saturdays, one Saturday, the last Saturday of every month, I partner with All Love. Wonderful God, you'll love it. And it's real raw. It's where we discuss the raw parts of healing. Those stories are unfiltered, unedited, and they're unapologetic, and it's something that can motivate and uplift you in a very powerful way. So I wouldn't miss that, and you'll see that here on Empowered Voices Finding Strength in Survivors. And on Sundays, every Sunday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you get to be empowered and motivated and uplifted by my sister, Coach Kiss. She shares so much, so many techniques, so many tools, using her everyday life as a guide every Sunday. It's called the Kiss Corner. So just this, like I said, if you don't do anything else, subscribe to this channel, because it's more than just this. It is a healing journey in itself. It's seeing survivors in real time, sharing their real stories to help a real community grow. Okay, so your story does not end in pain. It begins here with power. I'll see you tomorrow for the next episode. I love you guys. Stay strong and enjoy the week. And thank you again for your patience, because I know I am super late.
Heard you looking for a hero. Well, look up. No more running from the bad guy. I'ma stare him in the eye like, what's up? I know the journey got hard for a minute, but I ain't giving this up. Yeah, I got the heart of a champion. If I get knocked down, I get